Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel, One Book or Novel at a Time. Thank you for tuning in, and where I will continue reading to you Doll by Miracle Austin. And as I start every chapter that I read aloud, I do have to let you know that some books cannot be copied, cannot be read aloud without the authorization of the author. And in this case, Miracle Austin did provide authorization for me to do this. So I thought I'd let you know, and I have to state that, all right? So with that, I will begin reading the next chapters. Chapter 26, and it starts like this. It says, we drove about 25 miles before we arrived at the area Crow's airboat was docked at. We lined up outside the truck. Lisette had all of us spread our arms and legs as she sprayed the lemon-smelling mosquito spray on us. We even turned around so she could get the back of our legs and arms. She sprayed Crow down too. All right, think, we're ready, she said. Y'all, we'll be thanking Lisette later after y'all see a few of those huge skitters skim the waters and air in search of their next victims. Crow whispered out one side of his mouth as he leaned towards us. Cut it out, Crow. Don't freak them out before they get the experience, Lisette said. Hey, what's a skeeter? Sari asked. A fat blood-sucking mosquito that's a little bigger than a horsefly, with a sharp dagger at the end. It's just a nickname, but those buggers can really leave a big red raised itchy bump for a week or two. Regular calamine lotion doesn't relieve the constant itch or swelling, but only my homemade concoction. Crow howled. So, will this smelling spray deter them from us? I asked. Yes, it's homemade and an old recipe that was passed down onto me. It really works, Lisette said. We all walked down a gravel road towards the wooden dock. The sun felt as if it followed me and stayed directly on my backside, regardless of how I turned. The boards on the dock were a little wobbly and some were full of holes. We had to jump over a few because they were sunken in from the elements of the wind, water, and weight of passengers or workers walking back and forth. After about a 5-mile walk, at least, it felt that way. Crow's huge airboat came into view, anchored on the side of the dock. He smiled and helped the ladies into the boat. He directed us to buckle ourselves in because the airboat would glide at fast speeds on the water. He helped Lisette place her buckle on. She lifted her arms up as if she was in a roller coaster and about to go down a steep slope. Everybody in, he asked as he sat down in the driver's seat. He placed a ball cap on and sunshades. He turned on the engine, and it purred softly. He pulled the stick shift, and the airboat took off from the dock area like a jet plane taking off on a short runaway. Sari grabbed my hand and squeezed it. I remained quiet and endured the pain while trying to enjoy the cool droplets of soothing water on my face. Opal held on to her hat. Lisette turned around and winked at us. She whispered something in Crow's ear, and the speed lowered down a notch or two. I took a few deep breaths, and Sari lessened her grip from around my almost deflated hand. We passed several dock houses. Some looked vacant and ran down with moss hanging out the windows and a few alligators lying around the perimeters. I noticed several skeeters gliding on the water. They were just as Crow described, but these looked bigger. A few buzzed around us, but took off fast once they sniffed the spray. After a few miles up the river, we all noticed a huge plantation house, probably 3 stories, with tall wire fence encasing it. Lisette tapped Crow's thigh with her hand. He slowed down to the point where the airboat glided around the plantation. Lisette turned around to face us. Are any of y'all familiar with Louisiana's witch ghost story? Sari and I shook our heads because we were both clueless. Opal bobbed her head up and peered around the seat, and she said, I know a little. Do you know the story behind La Fantasma Plantation House? The ghost plantation? Opal asked. Yes. You familiar, Opal? I just know that most of the owners of that plantation either disappeared or something like that. My grandmother told me a story or two about it, but I didn't pay much attention. Yes, you have some of it correct, Opal. Lisette stared at Opal for several seconds before she uttered another word and glanced my direction. My great-granddad worked the grounds there years ago, and he told me some gruesome stories about that place, Crow whispered. Crow's family plays a big part in that place there. I've read several old letters left by Marie Lavieux about La Fantasma Plantation. Many shared that strange events occurred there. It all started back in the early 1800s. Most of the workers were slaves from various tribes. A young Creole teen girl, Michaela the Blame, was not your everyday witch. What do you mean by that, Lisette? Sari asked. She was a natural witch and shapeshifter, and she knew how to manipulate her powers when she was a toddler. Casper Garrison, the slave owner's son, fell in love with her, but when his family found out, they sent him far away and planned to torture Michaela. One of the workers told the family what she was and how they could prevent her from using her powers against them by wearing a necklace made from sage and hazel wood. But they failed because her powers were resilient to both. What happened? Sari asked. As her eyes grew wider, Michaela shape-shifted into Mr. Garrison's wife while draining her body at the same time. She murdered Mr. Garrison in his sleep. Michaela also murdered the rest of his family and all the servants. She placed a curse on that plantation for all the ghosts to wander the halls and grounds for eternity without finding any peace because of what they tried to do to her. Man, she really gave it to them, Opal said with a clownish grin painted on her face. Lisette scowled. Did she and Casper ever find each other again? Sari asked. The story goes that Casper was on his way back home to surprise Michaela to propose to her and run away with her, but he was robbed and killed by some bandits. During his travels, before he could reach her, Michaela was notified about it, and she found out who those bandits were somehow. They ended up experiencing horrible accidents. She became a hermit for several years and never married. She did teach one person her secrets and powers before she wandered away from her home and was never heard from again. Who? Sari asked. Mary Lavieux? Wow, I never knew that, Opal mumbled. Lisette nodded her head. Yes. Now, if you happen to walk those grounds at night, especially on Halloween, you can hear screams and laughter. Many say that it's Michaela's laughter. Goosebumps danced up and down my arms. We better get going soon. It's getting late, Lisette. I shared, checking my watch and holding my knee down with my hand to prevent my tapping from being heard. Yes, look at the time, Crow. Let's head back home, Lisette ordered. He started the airboat back up. We had been sitting under a tree. Before I could calculate the object in front of me, all I could see were fangs headed over my head towards Opal's face. She wasn't looking where I was looking. Lisette raised her right hand and froze the 7-foot cottonmouth snake in mid-air. Crow quickly placed the boat in neutral, scooted from his seat, and swooped in to grab the frozen snake. He popped its head off with the flip of his large index finger. He tossed both the body and head in the murky water. Opal was breathing fast. She reached into her pocket for an inhaler. We didn't know she had asthma. You all right? Crow asked as he bent down to her level, resting both of his hairy hands on his knees. Yeah, I think so. Crow walked back up to his seat and flopped down and buckled up. Wow, Lisette, you're like the female version of Flash and Sub-Zero. I'm impressed, I said. I looked over to Sari and I snapped my fingers in front of her. She was in a daze. She snapped out of it pretty quick. Babe, you okay? Yeah. She looked at Opal and exchanged a few words with her. Opal gasped and placed the inhaler back in her mouth for another round. I kept replaying the scene in my mind. It was so strange for a cottonmouth to jump out of a tree and target one of us in the boat. I wish that I would have questioned Lisette more about, but I didn't. I was focused on what had all occurred in the last 24 hours. This weekend had been a lot for me to digest with my witch cousin. Obtaining a doll spell to use against Pepper, the true story about my late mom, the possibility of the curse being handed down to me, the La Fantasma creepy story, and the flying cottonmouth's attempt at attacking Opal. To say the least, I was more than ready to get back to my normal life. But then again, life wouldn't be normal after we completed the spell. Crow started the ignition and the engine roared with a deep undertone. He shut off and we arrived back at the dock in no time at all. Crow assisted the ladies off the boat and back up the dock ladder. We walked back to his truck. I noticed Lisette standing at the front of the truck talking to Sari. No one talked much on the ride back. We arrived back at Lisette's. Crow told us goodbye and we thanked him for the airboat tour and all. The car was already packed and we were ready to pile in. Hold on, Lisette yelled out. She ran into the house and returned with a cooler. I didn't want you all to forget the gumbo. I know how much you love it. Told me, and probably won't get any for a while. Thanks. I'll not let any go to waste. Share with Sari, okay? I packed the rest of the homemade noodle soup for Opal as well. He will. I'll make sure. Sari whispered as she leaned her head on my shoulder. I checked the trunk to make sure we had everything. I placed the cooler in the back of the trunk. I jumped in the driver's seat. Sari sat in the passenger seat while Opal had the back. Lisette walked over and leaned over to my side while resting her arms on the window. Now, I want you guys to make sure that you follow the spell exactly how it's written. Remember, don't do anything different because consequences always follow. Understand? We nodded our heads in agreement. This is super serious. Tommy, call me if you need me, okay? Any questions? Opal mumbled something but stopped. Yes, Opal, Lisette questioned as she stared at her in the back seat. Opal shook her head. It's nothing. Sure, I asked.
Yeah, I'm good. Lisette continued to stare at Opal for a few seconds and then refocused her attention back on me. Well, I enjoyed you all. Hope to see you all again. Thanks for everything, Lisette, Sari said with a wink. Lisette winked back at her. Remember to follow my written directions, okay? We got it, I said. This is like the 100th time you've told us. Think we got it, cuz? I winked at her, and she winked back at me. Lisette backed up and stood straight. Crow was sitting on the porch swing. He waved at us. We all waved back as I placed the car in reverse to turn around. After a few minutes of driving down the gravel road, I looked up in the rearview mirror. I noticed Lisette and Crow standing together on the porch watching us as a trail of dust followed behind. And that is the end of chapter 26.
Wow, the book is getting really good, right? Very intriguing. It's got a lot of twists in the plot, unpredictable things that we've been reading on. So just wanted to let you know, thank you for tuning in to One Book or Novel at a Time. If you haven't subscribed, once this video finishes, hit subscribe so that you can be listening to other videos, because I also read other books. And but for now, this is it. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a wonderful day.